All right, we are going to start taking notes on our very first objective from our very first Power Focus area for math. And the title of that Power Focus area is called Proportionality and Percents. So this video is going to be for any of you that were absent last week when we started taking notes, or if you felt like you might have missed something because you couldn't keep up while we were taking notes. So we have our title at the top, and then remember we took our first objective, which was identify the constant rate of change, and we reworded it into a question, and over here we just said, how can I identify the constant rate of change? So in our first video, there was a young man that started going through and explaining the constant of proportionality and giving us examples written out in a table and in a graph. So the very first thing that he did was define what a proportional relationship is. And how we determine if something is proportional or not is we use our little equation k equals y over x. And remember, this fraction line means a division sign. So that is k equals y divided by x. Quick review of things you should already know. Y is our dependent variable. X is our independent variable. And then the new letter for today is K, which represents the constant of proportionality, which is the same thing as a unit rate. They mean the same exact thing. So the first example that we were given was 100 miles in 2 hours. So if I wanted to know the unit rate, how far we traveled in 1 hour, or the constant of proportionality, we use our equation k equals y divided by x, and in this case 100 miles is our y, 2 hours is our x, so 100 divided by 2, our constant of proportionality would be 50 miles per hour. So that's all you have to do. Anytime we're trying to find our constant or the unit rate, we just divide. Okay? So now we're going to take that information and kind of expand it and put it in a table. So we have our X represents our hours, and our Y represents our miles. So we know that in 2 hours we traveled 100 miles. So in 4 hours we would have traveled 200 miles. And in 8 hours we would have traveled 400 miles. Okay? And it's important, you can look at this table right off the bat before we go any farther than that and try to identify if there's any pattern that you may see. And if you look at our top row, our x's, okay, to get from 2 to 4, all I would have to do is multiply by 2. 2 times 2 is 4. To get from 4 to 8, I would multiply by 2. 4 times 2 is 8. Well, if you look at our bottom row for the miles, if I want to go from 100 to 200, I multiply by 2. 100 times 2 is 200. And same thing applies here. 200 times 2 gives us 400. So, if we were just given this table and we wanted to find the constant of proportionality, we use our same little formula. K equals y divided by x. And we go a column at a time through the whole table. Okay, so we take our first column here, our y value, because y has to go on top, our y value is 100, divided by our x value is 2, which we already know from earlier gives us 50. Okay, then we go to our second column in the table. Our x value is 200, our y value is 4. 200 divided by 4 also gives us 50. And then if we look at the last column in our table, our y value is 400 and our x value is 8. 400 divided by 8 gives us 50. So it's very important to note what happened here. Every single time we got 50. So for this table, we could say our constant of proportionality is 50. And since we got the same value each time, you should be able to tell me that it is constant, which means that it's proportional. Notice that we checked every single row in the table. Make sure that you do that as well, because if we had 50 for the first one, 50 for the second one, and let's say we got 40 for the last one, it would not be constant, it would not be proportional, we would not have a K. Okay, we want to get the same value every time. So now we want to talk about finding constant of proportionality on a graph. So talking about proportionality on a graph, one thing that you need to know, okay, for a graph to be proportional, it must go through the origin, which is the point 0, 0. You should have already learned about the origin previously. And it has to form a straight line. Both of those things must be true, otherwise it is not proportional. If I give you a graph, you should be able to look at it and within seconds tell me whether it's proportional or not. If it's touching 0, 0 and it's a straight line, it's proportional. If either one of those things is not true, it's not proportional. Okay? So I'm going to go to my next page because I ran out of room. Now, we're going to talk about graphs. So to find the constant of proportionality, from a graph, I must find a perfect intersection point. So what I mean by that is when you have your little grid on your graph that you're looking at, okay, you would want to pick a point that's right spot on an intersection. You would not want to pick one that's kind of halfway between. We would not want that. Okay, so we find our perfect point, and then it's business as usual. We would divide y over x. Okay, so for an example, we're going to just sketch a quick little graph. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just so that you get the idea that we are looking at a graph. Okay, our x-axis runs down here. Y-axis goes up and down. Our origin is down here in the corner, 0, 0. And then I'm just going to run out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just a rough little graph. Okay. And we're going to take the point 3, 6 and try to find the constant of proportionality. So remember, also something you should have learned with a coordinate pair like this, your x value is always listed first, and then your y value is listed second. So if we want to plot this point, we want an x of 3. So on the bottom, the x-axis, we want to go over 3, and then y is 6. So over 3, up 6, and just plot the point there. Okay, and since I want to show a proportional relationship, I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to start at the origin and make a straight line that runs through that point. So here's our graph. And we want to find the constant of proportionality for this graph using the point 3, 6. So our equation, same as always, k equals y divided by x. Okay, you can tell from here using the ordered pair, or we can look at the graph. This point is touching the y-axis at 6. And then our x value, again, from the ordered pair is 3. Or you can draw your line straight down and see that it's touching the x-axis at 3. Again, our fraction line is just a division sign. So this means 6 divided by 3, which is 2. So we would say our constant of proportionality for this graph is 2. Okay, so that's as far as we got taking notes last week. If you were absent or if you missed a section, make sure you have it all copied, and we will pick up with this lesson later on this week.